Welcome to Cosmic Man, Episode 2, episode titled Heart First Bluey Parenting. We do watch TV in our house, probably more than we should, and we'd like to read more with our kids more, or read with our kids more, and have less screen time. We're making an effort to do better with that, but still, the TV's on at our house, and deciding what show or movie or what movie will be on is always a fun time in our house with two kids, aged, one 7 and one 5, 7-year-old girl, 5-year-old boy. You can imagine that that's a just a fluid, super easy conversation. Hey, what show are we gonna watch? And they both just agree, and it gets along great. Uh, Obviously, that's not the case. Um, so there's actually I mostly despise kids shows. I've watched them all. I feel like I've watched them all. I'm sure I haven't, but I've sat through Wiggles and Dora, Princess Everything, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Paw Patrol, Spidey. Um, And while I do really enjoy superhero comics, shows, and movies, Spidey hardly counts. Um, there are, however, a few kids shows that we've watched over the years that are actually, in my opinion, worth watching. First, Benjamin Cello. If you've never seen Benjamin Cello, do yourself a favor, check it out. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere except for Form TV, which is a Catholic app on our Apple TV. But it's a really well done show. Catholic or not, it doesn't matter. Think of it like Mr. Rogers with really well composed music. My kids like it and have always enjoyed it. Check it out. Second is Wingfeather Saga. It's on Angel Studios. So the stories, there's actually books of them, and the books are really good. They're kind of C.S. Lewis-esque a little bit. I wouldn't say they're C.S. Lewis um, to that extreme, but or to that level, but that same vein. The book series is great, and the TV show is written, and the book's written by Andrew Peterson. He's written a lot of contemporary Christian songs you've probably heard of at church. Great series. Episode or season 3 is coming out here soon, so looking forward to that. But the books are already out, and they're wonderful. Third, and probably my favorite, is Bluey. Australian show. It's on Disney Plus. Every episode except one of them is under 10 minutes long. You laugh, you cry, you think. It's a great show. Like, it's so good. IMDb rates it 9.3 out of 10. And I think very highly of IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. It's how I base most of my viewing and my entire life, which is probably not great, but whatever. IMDb also rated it the 14th best TV show of all time, of all shows, not just kids. It's rated on that list right below Game of Thrones is at number 13, and it's rated above shows like The Twilight Zone, Sherlock, The Office, Seinfeld, True Detective, Friends, Ted Lasso, and so on. In 2024, it was the number one most watched show in the US. I don't mean to make a case to watch Bluey, but watch Bluey, even if you don't have kids, because Bluey is so good and episodes are so short. When the TV is on in our house, Bluey is often a good choice for us. The kids love it. My wife and I love it. Win-win. There's very few of those in TV viewing with kids. So, um, I said earlier, the Bluey will make you laugh, cry, and think. And first, me crying at a show is not exactly earth-shattering. Um, so, um, I mean, a good sad song comes on, and there's a good chance I'll cry. Uh, a show that makes me laugh out loud is more rare. So I'll often laugh to myself, but usually not out loud. Bluey actually makes me laugh out loud. And then it makes you think and reflect. I can't say how many people I have seen post about how they either hate the parents in Bluey because they're such good parents or they aspire to be like them. I often fall into the latter. As I look at what my parenting is as a father, and Bandit, the dad in Bluey, is the most TV show like dad I could ever imagine wanting to be. A good friend of mine, though, Aaron, pointed out that the parents in the show have teams of writers who have their entire job to develop these characters to make them look and react and respond the way that they do. They're not real parents. So measuring ourselves to them is unhealthy, unwise. In fact, to steal a line from the show, we have to run our own race as parents. That being said, there are several truths from the show that have caused me to step back and think how I could implement that into my life as a father or a husband or child of God. And sometimes the truths in the show are missing a crucial piece, namely God, but it doesn't take away the truth of what the show is sharing with us. And it is precisely in one episode, my favorite episode, that I'm going to walk a little bit through today and extrapolate some of those truths or things that have challenged me or made me think in some way. And um, maybe it can help you or not. Like I said in the first episode of this podcast, for all I know, this could be an audio journal podcast for my kids where they listen someday and say, man, what a dork. Um, or maybe it'll help them or give them a laugh one day. So, with that, let's just jump right in. So, the Bluey episode for me is it's one of my favorite. Is called Chess. Chest. Chest. It's actually about chess, the game. So, in the Bluey episode Chest, Bandit decides to teach his daughters, Bluey and Bingo, how to play chess. The episode explores the complexity of the game through the eyes of young children. Bluey even mistakenly calls it chest, hence the name, and compares it to checkers, noting that chess is harder. Mom, name is Chili, should reference earlier. Bandit is the dad. Bluey is one of the daughters. Bingo's another one of the daughters. Mom's name is Chili. Chili dog. So there you go. Um, Mom suggests that chess might be too challenging for Bluey, who is 6. Despite this, Bluey shows care for her sister by inviting Bingo to play with her, saying, Bingo, you can play with me. As Bandit explains the game, the girls struggle to understand and invent their own names for the pieces, like Castlehead for the rook, Prongs for the pawns, and Knights, which they call Horsey, named Gallahop and Daughter of Gallahop. Bingo wants to play, and Dad doesn't think Bingo should play because chess is hard. And Bingo is 4, so a little younger. Bluey tells Bingo, you can play with me. Again, and the girls split the team into 2. Mom, sitting in the kitchen, really appreciates Bluey's inclusion of Bingo, though Bandit objects to Bluey's idea of splitting the board into 2 teams. But Mom encourages him to let it go, saying, let it go, Deep Blue. And the whole episode then highlights the importance of protecting pieces as Bandit takes the girls' pieces during the game. Side note, Bandit and Bluey are blue healers, and Mom calling Dad Deep Blue is a reference to his being blue, but more importantly, Deep Blue is a chess computer run on the IBM supercomputer. So it's the first computer to ever win a chess game, Deep Blue. So there you go. But when the girls lose their queen in the game, the kids ask Mom, how do you beat Dad? Mom steps in and shows the girls how she can beat Dad, Bandit, in 4 moves. By questioning his motives for teaching the game, she asks, why do you want to teach the kids this game? Bandit replies, because smart people play chess, and I want my kids to be smart. Mom continues, why do you want your kids to be smart? Bandit explains, right now, you kids are little prongs, but one day you'll be queens, and I won't be there to protect you. You'll have to look after yourselves, but I'm going to do whatever I can do, whatever I can now to help you. As Bandit checkmates Mom, he tells her, you're a good queen, to which she replies, but a lousy chess player. And Bandit responds, you turned out fine. Mom concludes, this is my favorite line, work on their heads later. For now, just hearts. The episode ends, the kids playing their own game with the chess pieces together on the ground. So, obviously, that doesn't do the show justice. If you haven't seen the show, stop what you're doing. Go watch the show. That's much more important than listening to anything I could have to say. But really good show. Really good episode. Love it. There's a couple things that make me reflect on that. And the biggest part that kind of the rest of this episode is about working on kids' hearts first and minds second. So, one of the most life-changing books I've ever read is called Parenting Towards the Kingdom by Dr. Philip Mamalakis. If you're a parent, get the book. It's so good, and it has helped my wife and I so much over the short time we've been parents here now, 7 years, going on 8. Definitely don't have it down perfectly by any stretch, but there's so much in that book that you can refer back to time and again. One of my favorite quotes in the book is Dr. Mamalakis says, children are not tasks to be completed, but persons to be loved. How good is that? Children are not tasks to be completed, but persons to be loved. We can get lost in the hustle and bustle of parenting. Tell your kids, brush their teeth, eat your food, change your clothes, get your homework done. Let's get to school. We've got sports practice, eat dinner, check the box, clean your room, say your prayers, go to bed. Life as a parent continually, it can seem like a continual to-do list. And those things are important and that stuff has to be done, but that's not the point of parenting. We can also get stuck in the mindset, especially here in America, of materialism without even thinking about it. We look at our children, and here's something we might say we want for our kids. And you're thinking about, hey, what do I want for my kids? This is typical of, I feel like this is typical. Maybe not. Maybe it's just me, but I want my kids to have a good education. I want them to get into the college they want, to get the job they want, to get the life they want so that they can be happy. In that series, there's a series of in that sentence there's a series of gets. I want them to get the education. I want them to get into college. We want them to get the job, to get the life. So, while those desires for our children can be good things, we can focus our entire lives as parents to help our children obtain a series of things, all while missing the point. We're building self-consumed, all about me children when our focus for them, as is much of the American education system, is to get some status or job, to be compliant and to be a fruitful contributor to society. If we're lucky in that mindset, church is there for Sunday, and the rest of the week we spend consumed in doing things to obtain success in the world and the country. The desire for our children to be happy, to have a career is good, but don't we misplace that desire and become fixated on the world and the right now, with little regard for the things that truly matter? The mindset of parenting can lead us down the path of looking at our children as a project with a series of tasks to be completed each day, each week, each month, each year. And we forget that our children, fundamentally, are not pet projects or a series of tasks to be completed, but persons to be loved. When you look at Bandit in the beginning of the episode, he has a good idea, one that I love, as I've been teaching my kids chess now for a little while, and they love it. But Bandit wants to teach his kids chess so that it'll help them to be smart. Though, as Ted Lasso said, most adults think kids need to be constantly entertained. Truth is, they just want to feel like they're part of our lives. Bluey, like my kids, are almost always down to try something, if it will include spending time with me or my wife. They just want to be near us. Their desire as persons created in the image of God is to be loved, and that's what all of us want. From the hardest hearted man down to the tender hearts of kids, we want to be loved. Time together shows kids they are loved more than anything else. Multiple studies have been done, and recently a study looked at the effect of time together on children's well-being. The results, unambiguously, easy for me to say, showed that children who spend more time with their families have the best well-being and mental health. Further, the study by the NIH found the children's well-being is more influenced by the father's companionship than the mother's. Now, that's absolutely not to take away from the importance of moms. My wife and mothers are the backbone of everything. Can't even imagine my life without my wife. And I think I could speak for countless fathers when we say how important moms are. You can't take that away. This is, however, a call to dads, of which I am one, and out there to be continually present with our kids. It matters to them, absolutely matters to them for their overall well-being. Perhaps then maybe that's why Scripture talks about the role of fathers in parenting. Quoting Ephesians 6:1-4, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may be well with you, and you may live long on the earth. Fathers, do not drive your children to anger, but nurture them in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. Notice verse 4, fathers, do not drive your children to anger, but nurture them in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. How many times do we think of nurturing in fathers? Apparently not enough. St. Paul seems to think that while the commandment is to honor your father and mother, children, the command comes with an also, to the father. Dads, we can't gaslight our kids, call them names, tell them they're weak, that doesn't hurt. we're just told not to provoke them to anger. We have a duty, a pivotal role, to nurture our kids and the discipline and instruction of the Lord. The word for nurture is the Greek ektrepho. Pardon my pronunciation issues here. I'm not a Greek scholar. But it is the same word used for the care of one's own body as in Ephesians 5:29. The care we give to our kids is caring for our own flesh and blood. We need to make a shift from treating our kids like tasks into a spirit of looking at them as persons to be loved. Even when they stick their tongues out, throw themselves on the floor, or are disobedient, the goal of parenting isn't just to have kids who are compliant, but kids who are virtuous in the Lord. That being said, we often react with short term intentions rather than respond with long term goals in mind. That's another thing taken from Father or Dr. Mamalakis. You'll notice most of what I say actually isn't my own just original thoughts. They're a series of things that I've read, quotes, just kind of put together. So I don't have very many original ideas. At least I hope not. Um, Really, you'll notice how many times I quote something else in this rather than my own just thoughts on the matter. Um, this is more organizing a bunch of quotes, so yeah, dig in, I guess. But anyhow, um, again, yeah. So that being said, we often react short-term intentions rather than responding with long-term goals. How hard is it when we are at the dinner table and the kids aren't eating and keep getting up from the table to just say, "Sit down, eat your food," in a stern voice, or even yell? We can tend to yell our kids into submission, into compliance, and break their tender hearts in the process. At least I can. Um, in the short term, maybe the kids sit down and eat. Maybe they're quiet for just a moment of peace, and maybe, just maybe, their souls don't really understand why we are yelling, and they simply learn to be quiet and compliant to keep peace in the house. That to me triggers a whole host of things, but we don't want our kids to be the peacemakers in the house, to have to keep the peace in the house. That's our job as parents, not our kids' jobs. It's not our kids' jobs to walk on eggshells. We want to provide an environment where they can flourish, not where they can learn to just keep peace in the house. That's not good for anybody. Anyway, um, so dinner time can turn into quiet time, and nobody really looks forward to that. Or how easy it is to yell at our kids when they don't listen to go brush their teeth like you asked. I'm going to count to three. I'm bad at that one. Or I'm going to take X toy. So the kids, out of fear, learn to be compliant to keep their stuff. But what are we teaching our kids? Are we teaching them virtues, faith, hope, knowledge, wisdom, honesty, humility, obedience, patience, courage, faithfulness, self-control, kindness, gratitude? Or are we teaching them to be compliant, so compliant to our wishes to avoid a consequence? You might have heard obedience in that and said, that's what we're after. And you're right, obedience is important. But obedience and compliance are not really the same thing. We don't want our kids to simply obey out of fear for consequences. We know, as time has shown time and again, that positive obedience is better than negative obedience every day of the week. Here's a quote by St. John Chrysostom. When we teach our children to be good, to be gentle, to be forgiving, all of these are attributes of God, to be generous, to love their fellow man, to regard this present age as nothing, we instill virtue in their souls and reveal the image of God within them. End quote. Our goals for our kids long term help us govern our response in the short term. I recently heard Father Stephen DeYoung on the Lord of Spirits podcast, which is the best podcast on the internet. He's commenting on legislating morality in America today. So summarizing what he said, he said, we don't want kids just to not do drugs or to avoid sex before marriage, etc., because they're scared of the consequences. We want children to understand their value and their calling, to understand their sexuality, all in such a positive manner that to do those things would be unthinkable, and it would take away the joy that they have without doing those things. To help our kids know their worth and their value, that is part of the goal as parents. How many times when our children are going down a path we don't like, do we pressure them into changing? We see our children doing something or going down a path, and our first reaction is to stamp out the behavior through force. We use pressure. We treat God like he isn't even there. We take on the problem on our own and resolve to fix the potential issues by force, by groundings, by whatever it might be, by consequence, by word or by action. What if we took those concerns to God in prayer first? Prayer, not pressure. Just as we want our children to come to us with their concerns and needs, God wants to hear our concerns and needs, our struggles. But we go about parenting in a completely atheistic manner. We try to solve all of our kids' problems by ourselves. We try to do our own thing. Um, when we're concerned, we might go to our spouse. We might hold it all in. Uh, but do we go to God? That's the first place we should be going. Prayer, not pressure. We can still positively encourage obedience, but again, from a positive perspective and not a consequence-based reaction. Not to mention a part of psychology where kids learn through compliance to get things they want. Well, if I listen to mom and do ABC, I'll get XYZ. And here we are again at the I get mentality. Look, none of this is easy. St. Gregory of Nyssa called parenting, quote, the art of art and the science of sciences. None of this is supposed to tell you you're wrong and you're a bad parent. This is just as much a call out to my own parenting as anything else. I fail at this daily, but I hope at least some of this helps orient our parenting in a different way. I've mentioned a few times something about long-term goals as parents. So what is the goal of parenting? Parenting is, as my wife likes to say, much more about something the dog whisperer used to say. Quote, it's not the dog, it's you, end quote. Obviously, as feral as our kids can be sometimes, I'm not calling them dogs. Um, what is being said, though, is that parenting seems to be more about parenting ourselves than parenting our kids. Taking care of our own crap and our own scars is most of the battle. Quote, this is a quote from St. Porphyrios. Quote, what saves and makes for good children is the life of parents in the home. The parents need to devote themselves to the love of God. They need to become saints in their relations to their children through their mildness, patience, and love. They need to make a new start every day with a fresh outlook, renewed enthusiasm and love for their children. And the joy that will come to them, the holiness that will visit them, will shower grace on their children. Generally, the parents are to blame for the bad behavior of the children, and their behavior is not improved by reprimands, disciplining, or strictness. If the parents do not pursue a life of holiness, and if they don't engage in spiritual struggle, they make great mistakes and transmit the faults they have within them. If the parents do not live a holy life and do not display love towards each other, the devil torments the parents with the reactions of the children. Love, harmony, and understanding between parents are what are required for the children. This provides a great sense of security and certainty. End quote. And then another quote from Elder Paisios. When our children are still small, you still have to help them. You have to help them understand what is good. That is the deepest meaning of life. End quote. When we take care of our own side of the street through prayer and repentance and a life of faithfulness, the kids follow. Parenting isn't an outworking of our own, parenting is an outworking of our own growth. We can't call our kids to be something we are not capable of showing them something of. If we tell our kids, quote, don't drink pop while drinking my own soda, what message are we sending? We have to show our kids how to live a life of faithfulness, not just tell them about it. What is virtuous? What is godly? That is what is ultimately good. The goal of parenting is the same as the goal of life for all of us. Here's a quote from St. Clement. Quote, the primary lesson for life must be implanted in the soul from the earliest age. The primary lesson for children is to know the eternal God, the one who gives everlasting life. End quote. The goal is to know God. That's it, for us and for our kids. All of our responses to our kids should have that in mind. When we help them with homework, when they brush their teeth, when they fight with their siblings, what is good? What is holy? We want to raise saints, not compliant kids. Here's a quote from Dr. Mamalakis. God's desire is for us to raise children who know him, who live in his love, and who walk in his ways. God wants our children to know who he is and grow up near him, to become saints. That is success. He desires that our children live righteous lives in the world as they prepare to live eternally with him. He desires this because this will make us and our children truly happy, truly successful. He tells us if we seek him first, everything else will be taken care of, quoting Matthew 6:33. Saint Bede the Venerable said, "Better a stupid and unlettered brother, who working the good things he knows, merits life in heaven, than one who, though being distinguished for his learning in the scriptures, or even holding the place of a doctor, lacks the bread of love." And Saint Anthony the Great, quote, "Men are often called intelligent wrongly. Intelligent men are not those who are erudite in the sayings and the books of the wise men of old, but those who have an intelligent soul and can discriminate between good and evil. They avoid what is sinful and harms the soul, and with deep gratitude to God, they resolutely adhere by dint of practice to what is good and benefits the soul. These men alone should be truly called intelligent." When we look at our goals for our kids, it's good to want smart kids. More important, however, are faithful kids. Kids full of faith, love, charity, hope, patience, humility. One of my biggest fears as a parent is that my children will bully kids or be bullied. I don't care if my kids have high test scores. I really don't. I want to know that they love the people around them, whether they look like them or not. I want to know that my kids would go out of their way to make a stranger feel welcomed rather than make fun of them for how they look or talk. I want to know my kids would rather lift up a friend who is sad than tear someone down. My kids don't have to be smart to be kind. My kids don't have to be smart to love one another. Some of the greatest saints in the history of the church were illiterate, but showed great love. There's a thing called a buddy bench at school. I don't know if it's at the kids' school now, but it was at their old school. And the teacher said whenever a kid's feeling lonely, they told him, go sit on that bench. When other kids see this kid on that bench, they should go and invite that kid into the bench or into the game or whatever they're playing to be near them. One of the greatest compliments that I've ever been told, I not a compliment, that's not the right way to put it, um, is that Callum will go out of his way to include somebody else. The Addy will never exclude anybody. Those are the things I want to hear in parent teacher conferences. If they're struggling with the math scores or reading, we can deal with all that. In fact, if they always struggle with them, I don't care. Um, I want my kids to be kind, to be caring for other people. Jesus does not once call his followers to a higher education. He calls them to know God through himself, to love God, to love his neighbor. Love, that's the highest calling of life, to love one another. As a parent, we show our kids love, and our goal is that our kids love God and love their neighbor. All the study in the world can't lead a soul to God. Here's a quote from St. Silouan the Athonite. "We may study as much as we will, but we shall still not come to know the Lord unless we live according to his commandments. For the Lord is not made known through learning, but by the Holy Spirit." Many philosophers and scholars have derived at a belief in the existence of God, but they have not come to know God. And we monks apply ourselves day and night to the study of the Lord's commands, but not all of us by a long way have come to know the Lord, although we believe in him. Um, I once said to somebody that we can know everything there is to know about God, but if we're an asshole, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Um, that's simply knowing about God. That's not knowing God. It's good to be literate. It's good to be smart. But those things come secondary to the formation of the heart and soul of a person. Evagrius of Pontus said, "The soul is the mother of the mind, because it is the soul which leads the mind to enlightenment by means of practical virtues." And it's precisely for this reason that I love the episode of Bluey so much, because it's true. We can desire good things for our kids in this life, even from the right motivation. As Bandit wanted to teach his daughter's chess to be smart. Why? Ultimately, because he, as their father, won't always be there to help them, and the kids will eventually have to figure things out for themselves. He went to the mind to do that figuring out. Logical. It's sort of what dads do. But it's mom to the rescue. And it's Chili's words that ring in my ear when I look at my goals for my kids, keeping prioritize what is important. Work on their heads later. For now, just hearts.